Hey everyone, welcome again. It's Manish Jain, and you're watching What's Happening, and this is season number 3. So we've already done a couple seasons, and now we're going to mix it up, and we're going to have me do a monologue and talk about the news that's currently bouncing around in the EV ecosphere for the world and India. So we decided to kind of kick off this season with some of the new news that's out there. And the biggest one that we're going to get to a little bit later in the show is the tariffs from Donald Trump. What can I say? So he announced that he's going to have tariffs across all the countries that are there that are trading with the US. And in addition to that, he wanted to have a special additional tariff for all the automotive manufacturers. And so that is definitely changing how automobiles are going to be manufactured in certain parts of the world and how the technology actually plays into it. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. One of the first things I want to talk about is what everyone was really excited about 2-3 weeks ago till Donald Trump came on the scene, and that was BYD with their 1,000 kilowatt charging technology. So if you've been following the charging space, up until 1,000 kilowatts, the fastest charging has been with Tesla superchargers in the US, and those are about 250 kilowatt, and then they had bumped it up to I think around 450, 500, and even they were talking about doing 1,000 kilowatt charging, but I don't think it's actually in production as we speak. But when BYD came out on the scene about 2-3 weeks ago, they show that they can go from 5% to 80% like in literally 5 minutes, which is about the time it takes for you to fill up your ICE engine. So one of the things that really brings up the point is, the industry has been kind of moving at a very fast pace, but I feel BYD has really kind of accelerated this. And if you're an existing manufacturer of these superchargers, where does that leave you? Because now the technology that BYD has kind of puts you kind of like at a disadvantage point. So, it's everyone, it's the CPOs, it's the charging manufacturers, all of them, because now that BYD is really ramped up, it kind of makes you wonder, what do we do? Do you kind of keep on investing in older technology, or do you have to kind of say, maybe we take a pause and think about, maybe we need to revamp how we go to market with these newer technologies that are there. And so BYD is really leading the charge. And if you've been really paying attention, BYD for the last couple of years has been really leading the charge on many fronts, whether it's kind of getting their cars out to other parts of the world besides China, whether it's their charging infrastructure. More importantly, they've been talking about their blade technology, LFP batteries. So they've been doing a lot of things in the last couple of years. And I think that's where Tesla has been kind of a little bit slow, and that's probably because it's Elon Musk has been kind of distracted with many other things, and I think that's where BYD has really come in and filled the vacuum. And BYD is one of maybe 7 or 8 EV companies in China that's just kind of taking over, and so that's the one that we always hear about. But there's so many others that are out there. So that's, like I said, the first biggest news piece is the BYD supercharger that they just released. And we're probably going to see more and more of those chargers coming out. They mentioned in China that they're going to have about 5,000 of them. Here in India, I'm sure it'll come, but it'll be a very slow pace. But more than likely, you will see more and more of that. And it remains to be seen if other manufacturers take this up as a challenge, or if they just kind of say, let's just get our cars up to speed. At least, we can kind of charge at these faster paces. But let's see what remains to be seen. Number 2. So I've decided to clump, maybe about 3 or 4 of these India car launches because they do sound exciting, but I think it all depends on, where the industry is now going with these tariffs, because I think every country is going to probably do some sort of variation on some sort of tariffing and kind of limit the production of, foreign goods and cars into their country. So right off the bat, Maruti Suzuki has been talking about an electric car for many, many years. They finally released one, and they showed one at the auto show in Delhi. So that is the Maruti Suzuki E-Vitara. And they announced that it's going to get released in the next 2 or 3 months after that. But here we are, beginning of April, and we still have not seen the car on the road yet. I've not seen it. They say that they're at the dealer locations, but I've still not seen one on the road. And that has a range of about 500 kilometers, and the price range is between 20 and 25 lakhs. And it's got 2 battery options. It's the 48 and the 61 kilowatt hour battery pack. So that's the very first one from an Indian manufacturer, from Maruti, I should say, who's been around making cars for many, many years. In fact, probably the very first auto manufacturer after Fiat and Ambassador. The second one is the one that I've seen everywhere, and that's the Hyundai Creta. That was also announced. And Creta, of course, has been one of the best-selling SUVs in the Indian market, and they came out with an EV version of it. And that is also very similar price range, 20 to 25 lakhs. Of course, they have smaller battery packs, 42 and a 51 kilowatt hour kilowatt hour battery pack. But those I see everywhere. I think in the last maybe 2 weeks, I've seen about 10 to 15 of them on the road. So they are, but I think that's also part of the name brand of Creta. So I think people probably come into the showroom to buy a Creta, they see the EV version, and then I'm sure the salesman probably says, the amount of money you can save by getting one that's EV, and then people just kind of, naturally go towards it. It looks just like the ICE version, and so it's got that familiarity of, the body style of the Creta. So that also just recently, like I said, has been out on the road. Third one is the MG Cyberstar. So that is from the MG group, which of course is partnered with JSW. So that is their Halo car. It's a two-door sports coupe. They're saying it's going to be priced around 60 lakhs, but still remains to be seen what it actually shows when it gets on the roads of India. But two doors, scissors. We talked about it last time. It's got those scissor doors. They kind of come up. Very nice. I was able to sit in one about 6-7 months ago. Fit finish is amazing. On road around 60 lakhs is what they're saying, but we're still waiting to see. They're going to be selling the MG Cyberstar in a new set of dealers called MG Select. So this is their premium dealers versus the regular MG. Like I said, two doors, two-seater, super coupe, sports coupe. It's going to be the Halo car for the MG group. Let's see if it actually gets out on the road at 60 lakhs. If it does, I think it will do very well, and I think a lot of people will gravitate towards that car. Fourth news item is not really a new launch, but it kind of goes with MG. So the number one selling EV for the last several years, month on month, has been the Tata Nexon. It was the first EV really to be kind of come out on the scene. But since then, MG Windsor has kind of taken that mantle and has been number one ever since it launched about 4 or 5 months ago. So month on month, it's number one. Of course, the Tatas have several other cars that they're selling as well that are EVs, the Tata Punch and a couple others. So group-wise, I think Tata's still number one. But when you look at just individual nameplates, the MG Windsor is number one. And I think now when you have these others coming in, whether it's the Cyberstar, MG Comet, I think in the next 6 months, I wouldn't be surprised if MG becomes the number one selling brand in India for EVs. So that kind of is a nutshell of the cars that are, being sold in India. And the last news piece, which I think is the biggest thing, because you can kind of see if you've been watching the stock market since Thursday, Friday, and even today, markets have been following because Donald Trump announced massive tariffs across every country. He calls them reciprocal trade tariffs, but they're really not. It's a combination of some formula that they've come up with at the White House. But more importantly is that was one set of tariffs. The second set was on automotive. And that was really, I think, to kind of stem what's coming from China, what's coming from Germany. I don't think it really necessarily has much to do with EVs, but I think just in general, the automotive car companies in the US have a very tough time selling in Europe. So the case that Donald Trump always says is, if you're an American car company and you want to sell your GM or Ford car in Europe, you can't. The tariffs are very high, but for Mercedes and BMW to sell their cars in the US, the tariff is very low, 2.5%. So he says that's obviously not very fair and we need to fix that. And that's what this whole campaign is, to kind of fix that. Of course, in that, a lot of companies are going to get affected. So imagine you're a car company in India. Let's say you're Hyundai, you're manufacturing cars here and you're exporting them. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to get hit with an export tariff as well. So same thing is going to happen with the cars that are being manufactured. A perfect example is Tata Motors. They own JLR. So they just announced yesterday that JLR is stopping all shipments of cars to the US, which is a big thing. Maybe not so much on the Jaguar side because they don't sell many cars, but definitely on the Land Rover side. Imagine the newly redone Range Rover is selling like hotcakes, and now that is going to be stopped being sold in the US as of now, right now, because they're still trying to take stock of what's happening with the tariffs. And it's like I said, it's almost a developing story because they just announced it a couple days ago. They're supposedly implementing it in the next couple days. This could be bargaining tactics by Donald Trump. We're not sure, but whatever it is every car manufacturer is a little worried, and they're hopefully, making sure that they can sell locally and then figure out what they want to do, when they're exporting. And of course, one of the biggest issues will be with the German government and the German car manufacturers, because they manufacture their cars for, I think, almost 60% of the cars are exported outside of Germany. So for them, it's a big thing. So I would imagine there'll be some, EU trade agreement, and let's see how that affects even India, because when you import a car into India, we've got tariffs that are close to 125%. So hopefully that brings it down, and we can actually get some of these cars and still make sure that we protect the local manufacturing of, let's say, the Tatas, the Marutis, the Mahindras. All right, that's a wrap for Season 3, Episode number 1 of What's Happening. Till next time, have a great time.